Hi, I'm Francois for Production Music Live, today with Producer Notes, and we're breaking down the style of a modern melodic techno classic. In a way, we have an Ableton only and Serum project here in the style of Anyma Eternity. It's a fully arranged track with different harmonies and melodies, working in the box plus Serum, and we're trying to reverse engineer the style, learn the thinking behind the style to see kind of the world through the eyes of the producer, and then be able to use some of the concepts and ideas in our own music. We're going to get an overview of this project file first and then break down some of the main characteristics of the style. And it's a fully arranged track with intro, and then break part, build up, snare rolls, and then drop.
And let your circuits ignite.
And then more elements towards this part. And then there's a second break part, build up and drop, and the outro. And you can see everything is organized into groups here. We have kick and bass in one group, if we solo this one. This rolling bass line. And then we have drums in this group here. Kind of like a drum loop if you solo the drums group. And then we have the synths here. And the more instrumental, less groovy type synths are in this break group. And our effects can be found here. Okay, so let's go through it one by one. We can start in this drop part here with this very iconic sound. If I'm looking at the MIDI, we have 2 octaves playing. And the second one, the lower one, is always pretty short. And now you might be wondering, hey, but this is not a stable note. Correct, because this is actually being pitched up and down, the pitch bend here. So we are automating the pitch bend with this automation curve. And we are also automating the filter cutoff. So it's open, then it closes a bit. Okay, so filter cutoff and pitch bend automated here. And if we take a look at the effects here, turn them off. It has less high frequency information. If we go into Serum, we can see we are playing oscillator A, saw wave, 7 voices, unison, detuning set to 9 o'clock, and it's slightly being automated over time. And we can also see filter MG low pass 24 is being applied on the sound of oscillator A. And this is the one we actually automate down here. Drive up to, 2 o'clock, mix all the way in, fat set to 3 o'clock. And if we take a look at the effects quickly, we have distortion, EQ, chorus, filter, delay, and reverb. And well, let's turn them off and turn them back on one by one to see what's being added. Starting with the distortion. So it's getting more crisp in the high frequencies. If we add in the EQ, we can also see this one is being automated. So LFO1 is being applied on the sound, on the frequency of this EQ. And then we're adding in high frequency information. With this bell curve that's being pushed into the higher frequencies here. And then below that we have a chorus. Let's exaggerate this one a bit. So maybe this is quite this noticeable Anyma type sound you might have seen in some of the shows. And then we have a filter below that. Again, it's kind of similar to what the chorus seems to be doing here. We have this flange plus filter applied. And so it's moving around in the frequency spectrum. And this cutoff is also slightly being automated by this LFO here to add some movement to the effect. And below that, we have this ping pong delay. Yeah, but it's very esoteric. Just slightly applied here. And then below that, we have a reverb. And this is being mixed in ever so slightly. By the way, we also have a bunch of send effects. Actually, maybe quickly look into those as well. We are sending the signal into B, long reverb. So .8 seconds here, and then we're rolling off low end and high end. And it's also being sent into the big hall lead. Shimmer, 11 seconds long. Rolling off low end and rolling off low and high end after the effect, slightly boosting it through saturation. And then compression on top of that and sidechaining it to the sidechain. Pumping. And also we take the last two effects here. So we have this long reverb, 8 seconds. Kind of like for the frequency top layer, and then space delay. Okay, and this one is just, ever so slightly applied here with minus 43 decibels per octave. This is much more noticeable on the bass sound that we're going to look at later. But these are the effects that bring in room to the sound. Okay, let's take a look at the Ableton processing chain. Here we have an overdrive on top, super heavy. Drive at 33%, tone 76, and then it's really set to pick up on the high frequencies here around 3000 hertz and drive it to 57. Then we are rolling off some of the low end information before we send it through the drum bus and add some drive here with set it to soft, crunch to 61, and drive it to 84. That's also heavily applied. Now, you would probably never start designing your sound like this, but this is something you might add in when you're mixing the track and you feel like, hey, it has to be more crisp or it has to be more standing out of the rest of the sound. And then after applying this again, rolling off low end. And now emphasizing on mid and high frequencies here. With the OTT multiband setting. Set to around 60%. And now compression 4:1 ratio. But set to parallel mode, so only 50% applied like squeezing the signal together a bit. And now we are sending all of this into a very short room reverb where, you know, you just add a little bit of dimension to the sound. Let's exaggerate this effect quickly. So these are, you know, there's a lot of reverb tweaks on this one. And this is kind of due to the fact that, you know, this was reverse engineered, listening to the original sound and then trying to figure out how can we do this with Ableton only. You know, we're not using the exact same instruments and effects and everything. We're trying to do this in the box with only Ableton, you know, ingredients and Serum. So sometimes you have to like combine a bunch of elements to get to a sound that was achieved with maybe, you know, one element somewhere else in a different environment. So that's why, you know, this is not necessarily how you would work straightforward when you were starting from scratch, but when reverse engineering sometimes works like that. But it's also interesting because you can see how there are many ways to get to a certain sound. You know, there's not only one way. And it also gives you a feeling of what can be achieved with different effects. And behind that, we have this shaper controlling the sidechain signal. Right, and then we're going an octave up here with this one. And again, playing around with the pitch bend here as well. So the pitch bend is here. Sorry, it's this one. And it's set to 3 semitones and -3 semitones for the range of this automation. Okay, so this is our main sound. What else do we have? Quickly looking at this transition, what was that? Pretty straightforward sound. A square wave here with 4 voices and also sent through a filter. And then we have a little bit of hyper dimension and adding a little bit of room to the sound basically here, but nothing too crazy. The most important thing is that you have a square wave here with a bunch of voices, send it through a filter so it's not too high frequent. And then you send it through those send effects, those reverbs here in in B, in D, and so on. And there's a funny little auto pan effect also applied. So it has a little bit of movement as well. Next sound below this is, or above, actually here in this drop part, we have another background pluck. So the groove rhythm pluck, and these are the notes being played. And looking at the sound, we're playing a sine wave here with 5 voices and the alien spectral wavetable with 7 voices. And everything's being sent through a filter again. And then we have the envelope shaped like this on the amplifier, and we have the envelope 2 controlling the levels. So short and snappy. Okay, and we have a bunch of effects here. Hyper, dimension, filter, and chorus, delay, reverb, and EQ. It's not the most important element here in terms of the sound. You just want this groovy, plucky thing in the background. So this is the most important thing, and that is already being achieved by this wavetable here and by combining it with the sine wave. And much more important is what's happening here. We are carving out a lot of frequencies in the low end and the high end, and also try to make sure that some resonant elements really get taken out here. Kind of sounding like these overtones. We're also rolling off low end, and then again, everything's being sidechained. So zooming out a bit here, we are kind of through this synth section now. And let's take a look at kick and bass. So the other super important element in our drop, this is our group here. And the kick sound on its own, tight, little snappy kick, not too long. There's so much bass information. We don't want the kick to occupy too much space here. So nice and short kick. We have audio effects behind it, kick tight, which is processing via corpus. So corpus, kick tight, that's the preset here. Allowing you to shape your kick, and we're applying that like 8% here. Play around with it if you have a moment. It's kind of interesting sometimes if you want to slightly change the character of your kick. And then behind that we have an EQ cleaning up the boxy frequencies here. Around 200 Hertz. And then compressing the signal here with the compressor. Emphasizing on the transient. So it cuts nicely through the mix. And now let's take a look at, so in the group, not too much going on here. Sometimes we're using this auto filter to do low cuts. And now let's take a look at the rolling bass. First of all, we have this group processing here. Slight OTT applied, slight multi-band compression applied, but this is also very subtle. So we can go and take a look inside and take a look at the notes. C#1, and you can see velocities are being edited down here, 98 and 35. So that's why it's moving slightly. Feels more groovy that way, and rolled off low end. Sub is being created by another sound here, and high frequencies are being rolled off, and then we have a side chain here. So we really we are really cutting out everything below 100 Hertz on this sound and just focusing on the rolling part of the sound with this mixture of a saw wave and a sine wave. That's a very gentle sound. So we can hear a delay on the sound. There's no delay in the processing of the effects here. So let's check. We don't have it here, but we are sending it through the rolling bass group, and this one is going into our return channel space delay. Being sent through this echo with dotted 16s to left, to right. And then being sidechained, and then low end is being rolled off here to have a clean low end and not mess up the low frequencies and introduce phasing over there, for example. So this is what you can hear in the background of the sound. Otherwise, pretty straightforward sound. And let's take a look at the other rolling bass element. Again, same MIDI information. kind of the same shape here, or it's the exact same wavetable, but we have 5 voices. With the other sound, we only had like 1 voice. And filter, MG low pass 24. Which one is controlling it? Like envelope number 1 is controlling that. Decay time of 420. And again, just the dimension expander. This is what it sounds like when you exaggerate the effect. And then taking a look at the Ableton effect chain here, let's quickly turn them all off and add them in one by one. So if we don't have these effects applied, we have more high frequency information because its EQ is being turned off. Nice sound, huh? Nice and clean sound. And now we are adding a saturation here. So this one focuses a bit more on the higher frequent parts of the sound, and then this EQ behind it tames those high frequencies with this high shelf. So we take care more of this area here because we still have lead instruments that play in higher frequencies, so we don't want to occupy too much space in the mix. Kick and bass and the sub frequencies, this rolling bass more here in the mid lows, and then, you know, our pitched lead that we looked at can occupy the space above that. Here we have a filter that can be used to automate the amount over time, and then sidechaining. Combining it with the first one. So rolling bass 2 is to the sides and rolling bass 1 is more centered. So you have a, you know, strong signal. Take a look at the sub bass here. Yeah, that's exactly what you need. Like this is already feels like this typical festival sub, playing it together with the kick. It's also nice and clean, has a good length as well. If we take a look at the notes, what are we playing here? 16ths. You can also see velocities are being controlled. And now, if we turn off the sidechain quickly. So with steep curves, we are heavily cutting off the signal here below 23 Hertz and, you know, above 114, making room for those other bass frequencies that are rolling here. And if we take a look at the Serum sound, we have 2 oscillators playing. One is playing at octave 0 and the other one is playing at -1. So 2 sine waves. And the decay is set to 868, sustain at -20. And this is also what controls our 20 decibels per octave low pass filter here. And no effects applied. You just want those sine waves. And you want them occupying 2 octaves, and that's about it. To have like a strong, stable bass sound. Ideally super flat, you know, not too many dynamics. Together with the kick. And now with the rolling elements. Okay, we have this bass pluck sound here. And if we take a look at the wavetables here, we have basic word from analog, and we have a a normal saw wave. And this one is kind of a mixture of a saw wave and a square wave here. And we're playing 3 voices with this one and 5 voices with the other one. And you can see the levels are being automated here, and oscillator A is being brought in further with this shape than oscillator B. And this kind of takes care of the pluckiness of the sound. Also, the filter is being automated. The cutoff of the filter is being automated with the same shape here, and also a sub oscillator, which is a pulse wave here, is also being controlled in the levels. So this is the effect chain here in Serum. For the most part, you're looking for these bunch of voices on a saw wave and a slight mixture of a saw and a square wave. And then you want to roll off low frequencies. Then you can see a little bit of delays being added in here. Slap delay kind of gives you a little bit of more room for the sound. So it doesn't sound as dry. And then we are enhancing the transients with this little preset here. And let's actually put up the dry wet to really hear what's going on. So this adds crunch and gives you more control over your transients. You can it's nice in mixing when you have a feeling, hey, I just want to push this thing a bit further. Then you can just take one of those transient drum bass presets here, drop it on there and slightly bring it in. And then you don't have to EQ for hours and you still achieve a good effect, a good result at the end of the day. So what else do we have here? We have bass shot 1. So this one is dry compared to the other one we just listened to. And that's why it got a separate track here. And all combined. So this one has delays and is wider, and then bass shot 1 is dry and more centered. If we quickly take a look at it, it's just one voice, so this one is more in the middle of the panorama. And so combined, you get to this full picture of your bass. You have the sub frequencies, and then you have this dry bass shot. And then you get this bass pluck on top. Now, these tracks are not too complicated, but if you take a closer look at the single elements, everything is by design. There's no coincidence here. This is not like a happy accident or something like that. That's absolutely deliberate. They built this on purpose. And also left a lot of room for all these different elements. And then you get this rolling bass element that nicely fits in with everything. Okay, so zooming out a bit, we've taken a closer look at the bass and kick groups here. And now we can take a look at what the drums are doing. So we have very clean drumming here. We have a bunch of claps put together. A snare element. Always in the clap position. 2 and 4. And we have this clap layered. And then a third one. This one for texture, and this one also, and this one more for transient. And mid information as well. So we have this one for the mids, this one here, audio for the texture, and this one for added texture. And then we combine them in this clap group, so to have enough flash kind of to work with. Overdrive on top. Carving out higher frequencies here. And then a little bit of reverb with a decay time of 1.2 seconds. Together with the kick. Also not too long. More snappy claps and snares here. What is this ride doing on top? Yeah, very nice and clean ride. In the offbeat position, so position 3. Rolled off all the low end here and just focused on this nice and crisp, transparent part of the higher frequencies of the element. And rolling head. Sixteenth notes. It's super short, and you can see velocity going up towards the peak at the third one and then going back down to add this movement. Overdrive to carve out more crisp. And then rolling off unwanted frequencies and surgically removing resonant frequencies. And then sidechaining the whole thing to the kick. And hat number 2. So it's just at the end of the bar. Kind of this reverse thing. Let's quickly listen in. Kind of introducing the next part nicely with this reverse swoosh feel and our offbeat more dry hi-hat element. So we are so epic with our synths that we can be more dry with our drum elements here. And what else is missing? We have this crash here. Simple crash. And then we have snares. Okay, so we have these two are playing. So we are automating the gain here over time, and then they're being squeezed through an OTT here towards the end, and before that we are rolling off low frequencies. And this is a nice trick whenever you, when you try to remake something and you have a snare sound, but it's not really exactly tuned the same way that you want it to be tuned, or maybe also when you make a track and you're starting this and you want to tune your snares more into the mix, then you can use the frequency shifter and then fine tune everything. Also a nice and creative effect for interesting little build-ups and drops. Okay, so this is our snare build-up. Okay, so let's take a look at this break group here. We have a bunch of other synth elements. First of all, for our drop, we have this one here, this pluck sound. You can see it has this interplay. These two pluck sounds play a little question and answer pattern. So this one does nicely distributed over the arrangement. And if we go inside, we are playing 3 octaves of the same note. So we're playing E here. You know, there's not too many pads going on. There's not too much space occupied for melodic elements. That's why we can play 3 octaves and really have the strong sound. Can actually quickly consolidate this. And what are we playing here? If we take a look at the sound, we are playing saw rounded with 3 voices, 2 times, 1 octave higher, 1 octave lower. So we really cover a lot of octave ground here with our sound. And then it's being saturated. And then we have this whole group here. Let's quickly solo the sound. Already a lot of reverb on top. We are sending it through the long reverbs here. This is what whole lead is doing. Also through this long reverb. And in the effects section of the sound, we have a little bit of dimension expansion going on and distortion and chorus. Multi-band compression. This one really puts it together, moves it more into the high frequencies. And reverb is turned off. Yeah, and how does the pluck sound come together? It's envelope number 2 applied on the MG low pass 18 filter here. And we are blending in a little bit of white noise as well, like bright white noise. Like really rolling off low frequencies here to make room for the bass sounds again. And this one is emphasizing on the transients. Pushing through more the high frequencies again, and a little bit of short delay. And a room reverb here. Those more, not really early reflections, but earlier than the long tail reflections of a reverb. This is something that you put in when you mix the track and you have the feeling, well, it's still a little dry in the mix or something. Too dry. Also now, the send effects, the other 2 reverbs have more, information to work with. if I extend kind of the tail of the reverb sound here with the insert effect, then in this case, all this is being sent into the send effect, and that reverb can then take the whole tail as well and throw more reverb on top. Compression. Just like gluing all of it together so we don't have too many peaks standing out there, and then we're rolling off some of the high frequency information here and sidechaining the whole thing again. Okay, what else do we have in this group? We have these string sounds. Very simple element here. Nothing really crazy. This is, you know, it almost doesn't matter which string sound you use. You just use one of our techno Serum packs by Joao Pelf for PML, but this is not going to make such a big difference. Just make sure you roll off high frequencies and low frequencies, leave room for everything else, and then put in your strings. So I'm not focusing too much on this because you find these types of string sounds everywhere. Now we have this plug here. Yeah, nice and warm, saw wave, and a little bit of dimension expansion, yeah. And we're sending it through, what's that? Reverb short, reverb long, and the third one from the end is this you know, very tight room here. Kind of that sound in the basement.
Unleash the power of the algorithmic symphony. Embrace the binary flow and let your circuits ignite.
Yeah, and this is our pattern here.
Unleash the power of the algorithmic symphony.
Very straightforward. What else do we have in this group? Let's quickly take a look. We have this riser element here. 2 C# notes. Oh, it's more than that, huh? Yeah, 3. So those guys, and we're using the pitch bend to bring it up over time. So filter cutoff is also being brought up over time, and the pitch bend as well. How do we do that? Well, we set this one to 12 semitones, allowing us by moving the pitch bend up to cover a full octave. And we want to start at the lower octave in the beginning and end up at the higher octave. So this and the final note should sound the same, just an octave higher. And they do. So that's, if you don't set this to 12, then it doesn't work that way. Right, so you have to make sure you set this to 12 semitones if you want to pitch it up an octave by controlling this knob. And this is a triangle wave here with 16 voices and a saw wave. And again, filter cutoff applied on top. So that's how you can build a quick riser for your own purposes. And then we have this lead element here. Right, and we are using this one, for example, also in the beginning, in the build-up. And these two elements also have a nice question and answer pattern here. actually, let's quickly look at this from an arrangement point. We have this question answer pattern here, and also there's this one more bass donk effect kind of messing with everything in our effects group. It's this one. So these three elements kind of work well together. Let's finish looking at this sound first. So you see these notes that are being played, but you also kind of get a feeling, again, there's some pitch bend stuff going on, right? So we have this auto filter automating the frequency here. What is happening in Serum? What are we controlling here? This is the cutoff control. Okay, and we have 4 voices playing here in oscillator A with the saw wave, and the detuning is set to 12 o'clock, which is quite heavy. So detuning, pitching, typical elements being used in these Anyma or Afterlife, Tale of Us kind of tracks are, you have this pitching effects, you have detuning effects, you have chorus effects, flangers and phasers, and you really try to emphasize on the interplay between those elements. So this is the detuning part here of this sound, for example. Then you have a slight distortion on top of it, and then we also have it set to mono with the portamento slightly up here. So always making sure you get a little bit of this pitchy feel with the sound. And then obviously you also filter those sounds up and down. Okay, so that's the lead element here. And we are in this nice question and answer pattern. Again, quickly looking at this donk here. Square wave, filter on top, 24 decibels per octave. Very pitchy, with a short envelope applied on the cutoff here. And again, short decay time on envelope 1, and then long reverb on top, and we bring it up. That's what we send this donk into. And here and there we have a recorded element of the reverse, the very reverse of this.
Embrace the binary flow and let your circuits ignite.
So that's the vocal sample, AI generated voice, and this is our effects section. It's a standard effects section with a bunch of ahs and impacts, and rain ambience in the background. And then what do we have here? Some drone. And an ah vocal with a long reverb tail. And then you have these impacts, clap impact with a long reverb. The donk was already shown. Then we have a sweep up and more. There's super high frequencies here. And reversed elements. Reverse vocal sample here, also long decay time, cut out some resonant parts. Right, and then what else is in the effects group? This drone again here. Adding in a little bit of ambience. Okay, and so what are some of the key takeaways here for the style? If we look at the main lead, This is achieved by a combination of pitching the notes over time, detuning the sound over time, adding in chorus effects, flanger effects, and phaser effects, and automating these things back and forth. That's how you achieve the sound, even with just playing octaves. Here it feels like there's a lot of harmonic movement in the sound somehow. And this is for the lead sound here, very special, very specific to this artist's sound. And in the bass, you have a combination of bass plucks and bass shots and donks. And you place them strategically over time and make sure they don't interfere too much with one another. And then you also every now and then add in such a donk. But overall, you try to keep it very clean. And that's also true for the entire thing in general. Here, you don't make it too busy or overloaded with sounds. You kind of really rely on having these question and answer, call and response patterns here and not bloat the entire frequency spectrum, because otherwise you're getting it's more difficult to make it work on these main stages at festivals. So feel free to check out the links in the description of this video if you want to learn more about melodic techno production. We have the full Melodic Techno Start Finish Academy with online courses, sound packs, and a fully editable album of educational project files you can mess around with and learn from, all with Ableton and Serum. And also, if you want to check out some of the drum packs, we have the legendary The Premium Drum series. Also, if you want to learn music theory for writing your songs, we have a course on music theory for melodic techno and house. And if you want to get the full experience, feel free to check out the Everything Bundle. And with that being said, let's have a full playthrough of this track.
Unleash the power of the algorithmic symphony. Embrace the binary flow and let your circuits ignite. Unleash the power of the algorithmic symphony. Embrace the binary flow and let your circuits ignite.